You think you know London. You've seen the red buses, the black cabs, the great dome of St. Paul's rising above the Thames. You've walked the Strand, crossed London Bridge, perhaps stood in the shadow of the Tower, and felt the weight of centuries pressing down on you. But strip away every layer of concrete, every Georgian terrace, every Victorian sewer and underground tunnel, and what you find underneath is something almost unrecognizable. A city of 500,000 souls packed into a space barely 4 miles wide. A city that stank of coal smoke and river mud and horse dung and roasting meat and human desperation. A city louder, denser, more violent, more vital, and more astonishing than anything you have ever imagined. This is London in the year 1700, and almost none of it survived. To understand London at the dawn of the 18th century, you must first understand what had just happened to it. In September 1666, a fire started in a bakery on Pudding Lane, and over 4 days it consumed over 13,000 houses, 87 parish churches, and the medieval St. Paul's Cathedral. The Great Fire of London did not destroy the city, it transformed it. By 1700, London was in the middle of the most extraordinary urban rebuilding project in European history. Christopher Wren alone had been commissioned to rebuild 52 churches. His new St. Paul's Cathedral, begun in 1675, would not be declared complete until 1711. In 1700, its great dome was still under active construction. Step off a boat at the legal quays just downstream from London Bridge in the year 1700, and the assault on the senses begins immediately. The Thames in this era was not the tamed, embanked river of today. It was nearly twice as wide, shallow at the edges, its muddy banks exposed at low tide and crawling with mudlarks, children and elderly scavengers who waded into the freezing silt, searching for dropped coins, iron nails, lumps of coal, or anything that could be sold. The river itself was the city's highway, its sewer, and its larder simultaneously. The air above the Thames tasted of brine, coal smoke, tar, and rotting fish. London Bridge itself was one of the great spectacles of the age and a complete anachronism. Built in the 12th century and never fundamentally redesigned, it was still lined with houses on both sides. The bridge was effectively a street suspended above a river, and it was perpetually congested. The starlings, the massive stone piers supporting the bridge, were so wide that they narrowed the river's flow into violent, rushing channels beneath each arch. Every year, foolhardy or desperate Londoners attempted to shoot the bridge by boat, and every year some of them drowned. Atop the southern gatehouse of the bridge, a tradition that had persisted since the 13th century, continued undisturbed. The heads of executed traitors, preserved in tar, were mounted on iron spikes for public display. Move inland from the river, and you enter the city of London proper, the ancient square mile, the original Roman Londinium. The rebuilding after the Great Fire had produced wider streets in some areas, an entirely new stone and brick construction where timber had burned. But the ancient medieval street pattern had been largely retained. A visitor who knew the pre-fire city could, by 1700, still find their way through largely the same network of streets. The Great Fire had changed the materials of London. It had not changed its DNA. The heart of commercial London in 1700 was the Royal Exchange, rebuilt after the fire in magnificent classical style and reopened in 1669. This was the nerve centre of a trading empire. Merchants from every nation in Europe, from Turkey, from the East Indies, gathered here beneath its open courtyard arcades to conduct business. Within walking distance of the exchange, the new institutions of modern finance were being born in real time. Lloyd's of London, the insurance market that would eventually underwrite a global empire, had begun as a coffee house on Tower Street in the 1680s. Jonathan's Coffee House in Exchange Alley, where traders gathered to speculate on stocks and shares, would evolve within a few decades into the London Stock Exchange. In 1700, you could walk from the world's most sophisticated commodity trading floor to the birthroom of global insurance in under 5 minutes. And yet, step 60 seconds off this world of high finance, and you step into something ancient, crude, and utterly medieval in character. The courts and alleys behind the great commercial streets were packed with the working poor of the city, the porters, the seamstresses, the apprentices, the hawkers, the pickpockets, the gin sellers, and the prostitutes. Housing in these areas was catastrophically overcrowded. Single rooms were rented to entire families. The water supply came from parish pumps that drew from ground sources contaminated by the city's complete lack of a sewer system. Human waste was collected in cesspits beneath buildings, and when these overflowed, which they regularly did, the contents drained directly into the street gutters. Crossing London's streets in 1700 required navigating a slow-moving river of filth, and only the wealthy could afford the sedan chairs or coaches that lifted them above it. The social geography of London in 1700 was simultaneously rigid and porous. To the west of the city, the wealthy were already migrating toward the new developments of Covent Garden, the Strand, St James's, and the embryonic squares of what would become the West End. Inigo Jones had built the piazza at Covent Garden in the 1630s, importing the concept of the Italian piazza to English urbanism for the first time. By 1700, the piazza had already been invaded by the market that would define it for the next 3 centuries, its elegant arcades overwhelmed by fruit and vegetable stalls, flower sellers, and the coffee houses and taverns that surrounded it. The Theatre Royal on Drury Lane, rebuilt in 1674, was one of only 2 licensed theatres in the entire city, and on performance nights the surrounding streets were jammed with every class of London society. Theatre in 1700 was not yet a respectable upper-class entertainment. It was a populist spectacle, raucous, interactive, and dangerous. In 1700, the area just north of the city wall, the district known as Moorfields, contained the largest open space within walking distance of the urban core. It was simultaneously a laundry ground where Londoners spread their washing on the grass to dry, a location for wrestling matches and blood sports, and the site of Bethlem Royal Hospital, Bedlam, the notorious asylum for the mentally ill. For 1 penny, any member of the public could pay to enter Bedlam on a Sunday and observe the patients. In a typical year around 1700, Bedlam received approximately 96,000 paying visitors. To the east of the city lay a different world entirely. Spitalfields, Whitechapel, Stepney, and Wapping were the industrial and maritime quarters, growing explosively fast and almost entirely outside any form of urban regulation. The Huguenots, French Protestant refugees who had fled France following Louis XIV's revocation of the Edict of Nantes in 1685, had arrived in their tens of thousands and settled densely in Spitalfields, bringing with them the silk-weaving skills that would transform the local economy. By 1700, French Protestant churches occupied converted buildings. Within a generation, the Huguenots would build the magnificent Christ Church Spitalfields, designed by Nicholas Hawksmoor, one of the most extraordinary Baroque buildings in England. The community that would commission it was still newly arrived, still grieving its displacement, still rebuilding its identity. The climax of London's year 1700 was not a single dramatic event, but a slow, grinding catastrophe that killed more Londoners than any fire or battle. The winter of 1709. London's Bills of Mortality, the weekly published tallies of deaths by cause and parish, recorded approximately 20,000 deaths per year in the city at this period. The leading causes of death listed in the bills make grim reading. Consumption, tuberculosis, was the greatest killer, followed by fevers of various kinds, convulsions in children, smallpox, and the ominously vague category recorded simply as aged. The city could not sustain its own population. London in 1700 was growing at a ferocious rate, but it was growing entirely because of immigration. London was a machine that consumed human lives faster than it could produce them, and it kept growing anyway because the economic opportunities it offered were unlike anywhere else on Earth. This is the city that stands at the hinge of history in the year 1700, a city of 52 new Wren churches rising from the ashes of the old, a city where the dome of St. Paul's is still half built, but already becoming the symbol of a new age. A city where the institutions of modern capitalism, insurance markets, stock exchanges, central banking, are being invented in coffee houses by men in periwigs and heavy wool coats. A city where a French refugee weaver in Spitalfields and a Jamaican sugar merchant on the Royal Exchange, and a Thames mudlark in the River Silt and a playwright on Drury Lane all inhabit the same square miles simultaneously, living in different centuries at once. Most of what they touched is gone. The houses, the coffee houses, the medieval bridge with its iron spikes, the laundry fields of Moorfields, the pay-per-view asylum. Gone, but the city that replaced it was made possible by them, by the density and ambition and brutality and brilliance of London in the year 1700. You are living in the consequence of a city you have never seen.